Yeah, there we go. Okay. So today's class will purely be or doing a to-do website or a small or a simple to-do application. So this to-do will have a few capabilities. For example, the first capability can be, let me do a file here, new file, index.html, save the file, it will be saved there. So my file is here, index.html. Yeah, I'll do the other one. So today's work will be quite easy. So we are going to do a to-do application, and it will have a few things. Lists. So lists are groups of to-dos. For example, you can say this is my to-do list of YouTube, what I want to do with YouTube, or what I want to do uh, maybe at some website, or yeah, at some website, and or what I want to do through the day. So that's what it will have lists. The next thing it will have is an input or its functionalities. So let me just do functionalities. Functionalities zitakuwa kama adding new lists, uh, adding to-dos to these lists, uh, marking to do as complete or incomplete. We also have deleting a to-do, and after deleting a to-do, yeah, that's all. And we have maybe deleting lists, so a list. Yeah, so that's what we're going to cover today. And scrolling down, I'm going to start writing my HTML just below what we're going to do. And to be secure, if you are doing an HTML file, always have your text in the body tag. So HTML there. So my best to do app. So that's what we're going to do today. Let me move this one in front, come here, select this, move them a bit. So lists, groups of to-dos, that's maybe YouTube. So let's start from the top. We are not going to have a navigation bar, so I'm just going to have a main tag. The main tag will wrap everything, so I'm just going to give it a class of my wrapper. This is just a wrapper, it will wrap through my code. The next thing we're going to have is two rows or two columns. So I'm just going to do a div here, the class of a row. And in this class, I'm going to have two divs. And this will be my columns. So I'm just going to call this one class I'll call this call4. And I'm going to call this a div. I'm going to do another one called div, class of call8. So I've just given them some random names, call4 and call8, meaning this one will be small. It will only be like taking 40% of the viewport, and this one will be taking about 60% of the viewport. That's what I've done with the row here. So then we shall have, in this call4, we are going to have our lists. So I'm just going to do my h2 here and say lists. Then under the list, I'm going to just have an ordered list. I'm not going to use a lot of elements, so I'm going to do a div, and in the div, I'm going to have an ordered list. And in the list, I'm going to have an li of, let's say, call this one YouTube. And I'm going to copy the li and have the same like my day's work to do's. Yeah, then I close my div like that. So that's just for the list. Then under this section, we're just going to have a title. So it will be div. In this div, I'm going to call this one to do's holder. So it's like the holder of the to-dos, and in this I'm going to have, and in the to-dos holder we are going to have like two elements. So that's div, and then this one I'm going to call it a class, or give it a class of to-dos title. I close this div here. I need to indent this well, so I'll move it forward mahali inafaa ifike, then niandike hapa ndani h3 niseme YouTube list. Then the next one I'm going to have is, so that's the title, and this shall be the body, a div, a class to-dos body, and in the to-dos body we are going to have just another row div. I'm just going to reuse the same class row, and in this row I'm going to have the complete and the incomplete ones. So the first one will be div. I'm just going to call this one a class, or give it a class of a call, or to be fair, call 50. We'll be taking 50% of the given width, and this one it will be same call 50. Then here we are going to do maybe a h4 and say complete, and another h4 here, incomplete. So we have incomplete to-dos and complete to-dos, and maybe we can do another one to make this one more heavier, all the to-dos for YouTube list. So let's have here, this is no longer call 50. I wanted to take a third, so I'll call this one call maybe 30. Inamaanisha I'll just give it at least that 3% of the width given of the row. Under the to-dos body we have this row. Let me switch this one a bit, icon issue. So instead of doing that one, I'm going to do a div of class title, or the status holder. So I'm going to close this one. That's the status holder. Na hizo ndizo status tuko nazo. Let me move this one mbele, then this one mbele. Let me space my work to make it readable. We have the status holder here. So in the status holder we are going to have a div, and in the div we are just going to have this class. Now this the to-dos list. Now I'll call just say to-dos list, and add an ID here, call it a to-dos. That's where the to-dos will be. For example, we shall have I could use an OL, anything I want. So let me just go with the OL, and it shall be a list item, and say to do number 1. So I just duplicate that. I do 4 here, I do 3 here, I do 2 here. So far this could be all, but we need to add something else just below here, and I say a div. So this one will be holding the form that will be adding these to dos here. I close the div, and this shall be a class of input, or let me call it to do dash input, and in that I'm going to do a form, and in the form I'm just going to have an input, and after an input we are just going to have another button here, the type of submit, and the text will be add. Then we have the type here to be text. So let's see what we have. So if I open this on the browser, so this is what we have, just the lists. YouTube, my to-dos today, my days to-dos. We have the YouTube list. That's now, if you have selected YouTube ndio itaonekana this side. If you have selected my days to-dos, ndio itaonekana this side. But so far this is what we have. So let's see whether we can be able to style it to look even better. So for styling purposes, actually this is all we have to do with HTML. So HTML is complete. So it's making this more lively by adding CSS and adding some JavaScript, bits of JavaScript to make it work out. So I'm going to do a link here. And for this link, I'm going to link my style.css file. And I'm going to go to my code here folder and do style.css file. Save the file, hit save. So far there's nothing good going here, just linking the file. So if I refresh the page, there's nothing happening. So let's do that star and say margin. We just remove the margin. So you notice I have not removed the padding. Yeah. Then we have the border box. No, not border box, but rather no, box sizing. I'm also going to get rid of any problems to may encounter when using box sizing. So I'm setting this one to border box. Then I did some small mistake here for my to-dos. So instead of just doing them directly up and down li, then the to-do text, I'm just going to use a p tag for each of them. So p tag instead ikae up and down hivyo. This one will be more of a better than just being hivyo to blank, so as we have another attribute to use with our another element to add to our list. Here we go. And then we quickly update this one, 2, 3, and 4. There we go. No, nothing much, just without the padding, no, without the margin that's always with the body, and that one. So let's start styling. I called my, where's my wrapper? This is my wrapper under the main tag. So let me start by calling the wrapper dot wrapper. So for our wrapper, I'm going to set a background. As I said, there are many options when you are doing backgrounds. So for this one, I'm taking a linear gradient, and for that, I'm taking a linear gradient of 45 degrees. Just is it pink, purple? Let's see what we have. That's how it will appear. Pink, purple. That's a linear gradient. So I'm going to revert this one to something like minus 45 degrees. So the purple kuja ni kama inakuja juu na hiyo ingine iende the other side. Then I'm going to make this one more visible by setting the width and the height of this wrapper to a given value. So I'm just going to set a height of any given 100 view height of any given height of the screen. That's 100 view height. After that, I'm going down to set the width of this wrapper. Okay, so if I set width on the wrapper, somehow things might not work well. So width equals to, let me say I'm setting anything that is mean of 100% minus, let's say 3 rem, or something which is not more than the mean of this, or let's say 1200 pixels, I think. Refresh the page, you realize that somehow it has set the width and not the full width of what we want. We want the width to be full, like okay, we have this colored background ikae katikati iache the remaining part, and also we want the background to be on the full body, not just the wrapper. So what we shall do here is move the background to the body. So cut this from here, move it upwards there, and I'm going to just style this using tab, space, space. And also I'm going to set the margin here to be something like photo. There we go. Now our list has given some margin to the left and right. So I'm just going to drop this to 1000 pixels. Yeah, imesonga ndani kidogo, now narrower. Then after that, I'm going to do now this row, our given row here. Yeah, I'm going to work with the given row, and I've realized a few things to move on. Instead of setting the height to this main class, let's drop it to the body tag. Just need to drop it here. That way it will be better. Now the height is not set to the wrapper, but rather the body. And in this we have a row. So wrapper row. So that's what I'm going to style. Dot wrapper and dot row. I want to have like a styled row here at this particular point, and it's not working for me the way I want. So I'm going to add another class here called a card. So I'm going to style the card class itself. And I'm going to set a few properties here. For example, the background to white. Save, refresh the page. That's now the background I'm talking about on the card. I'm going to set some padding of 20 pixels. Refresh the page, the padding as setting. Just slightly increase it to on the top and bottom to be 50 pixels, right and left to be that px. That's what we have. Then I'm going to center or give some padding to the wrapper itself in order to set the the card ina or isikue hapa juu kabisa, isiguze huko juu kabisa. So to do that, I'm going to do padding top only about 50, 100 pixels. I think will do better. Refresh the page. Yeah, imeiset, imesongesha chini. Then continue styling my card. I added the border radius here of 20 px. That's what we have, some border radius to the card. The next one we have is might get back there, but for now let's continue with the dot row and set the display to flex. That's all we need to set for our rows. Now everything is aligned left to right. The next one we want to add is the now in the rows we have different classes. For example, the first row has call4 and call8, and the second row has call30. Yeah, it has call30. So let's do that. So dot call4. So we know this one should be take a width of 40%, not more than that. And call8 should take a width of 60%. 60%. If I save, now you will notice a difference. The lists row, the list column, and the YouTube list column will have somehow their own with it. So this one is 40%, this one is 60% to the right. Going down to the other columns, that's called 30, I think. Right, these three columns in this single row. What we are going to do here is set a width of, let's calculate this width because we are not sure how much we should award each one a third. So it's just 100% of the given width divided by 3, because there are three of these columns in a single row. Refresh the page. Now we have 1, 2, 3 of these in a single row. So they are taking that percent each. If I may add some more some background here, and I say maybe red, you realize you might not notice the difference. But if I come here to the row itself and add a gap of maybe 2 pixels, you will notice like somehow the given widths are the same. So in the call that is, I'm going to set a few more properties. For example, text align to the center. So if I refresh the page, now everything is aligned to the center here. Then we have, so let's start styling from the lists down. So let me go here and we have the list here. So we have lists here. I'm gonna add some classes here. For example, UL class list there. And this class, each element is going to have its own class. So this is list item. I'd rather same a class for these list items, and this one shall have that one. list item. So list item. So let's style those, and this one should be class of list heading. So just add s there to be list heading. Copy the class, come here and do dot list heading, and say a font size of maybe 24px. Let's see what we have with 24px. Somehow larger. We add some margin, the bottom of 10 pixels, like that. It was given some margin. Then we have the inner one we have is the list, then list item. So dot list, what's there? So for each list we are going to remove the list style type at none. And after setting the list style type, I think that's all for that list. We could do numbers, but now let's just leave it none. And we do a dot list item and add some padding to it of maybe 10 pixels. We give it some spacing. That sounds large. So top and bottom. So top and bottom should be 6px. Yes, and right left do 0. That's what we have for our lists. Except you might notice like this one has moved in. That's not the case. This should be in line with the title itself. So let's see where we are going wrong. So this a div, the list, it has that. So by default, the UL might be having some padding. So let's get rid of the padding on the list itself. So padding to set it to 0. Refresh the page. Now everything is lined up top down. The next we have this. So this is the list heading, and we have the YouTube list heading here. So let's also look into that. It's under the to-dos title, and we in the to-dos folder. Copy the to-dos folder, move it here and start doing some styling. To-dos folder, and say we are going to give it a fixed height of something like 500px. Let's see how long is that. That overflows out of our card, so we need to set a height that's not overflowing. For this, I'm going to use this 60 pixels, not 60 pixels, but another unit called VH. That's 60% of the given height. That's the view height. So refresh. Now that one is better. Then for the to-do title, dot to-dos, let me copy the class to be secure. To-do title, and also the input itself. That's this form here down. They are going to have a given height or a fixed height. Dot that they are going to have a single height of 60 pixels. Then the to-dos body, let me copy it to be good. It's called to-dos. So to-dos, it's going to have a height by subtracting these two from this fixed height that we set here of 60 VH. So we are going to do here a calculation. Calculate given height 100% minus 60 pixels minus 60 pixels. So you are just subtracting 120. Better do it at 120px. So refresh the page. You realize this one has taken its height and this one its height, except somehow the to-dos. Let me give some background here to be able to notice the difference. Copy that, paste here, and refresh. Yes, these ones have taken 60 pixels, but the inner one has not taken its given height of 60 VH minus 120 pixels. So let's make sure it takes that one. So dot to dos is under the to do folder, but not taking into consideration this VH. So a quick solve can be doing this, but we are repeating the same value. We could have used 100%. Let's see whether that one fixes. Yes, that one has fixed our issue, but in a not so good manner of fixing issues. That's pretty good for now. So I'm just going to set a border radius here of 20 pixels. That's my border radius I'm using, like that. Then I'm going to add some padding to both. Padding, set it at 20 px too. Refresh the page. Here we have, so 20 px border radius is kind of large, so I do 10 pixels. Refresh the page. Now that's our 10 px. Now this one is totally misplaced. It should be somewhere, so let me see where it is and style it too. So it's under the to-dos body. Or we could have actually done the to-dos body, not just the, let me see where it ends. Copy there, there. So to-dos body, to-dos title, to-dos body. I need to status folder and the to-dos themselves here, and the inputs down here. So it's kind of like taking a few more things that we never wanted to do. So let's set the height at the to-dos body, not just at the given, not at the to-dos. Here it might be confusing a bit since I'm going back. So instead what I'll do, I'll just move this from here, paste it out here, format it well, shift it back. So it will be in the to-dos folder. Then we have the to-dos body. Copy this and set it here. The height of the to-dos body. Refresh the page to look the same, but somehow now it's taking into consideration a few different things here. So we have the body up here. It has the title has a radius on top, top left, top right, and all the corners. I only want it to be just on the top so that I can style this one to have the rest of the radius. So to do that, that's under the to-dos title. So in the to-dos title, I'm going to give it a different border radius and move it a bit under, say border radius. I want it to be just on the top, so 10 pixels, top left, top right, 0 and 0. So hakutakuwa na border radius hapa chini, the bottom left and the bottom right corners. Then I'm going to set the, now style this incomplete, all complete and incomplete with different styling. So let's go here and I do the status folder, copy the class, style it here, dot status folder, and they say the height should be 40 pixels. I'm setting a fixed height here because yes, and I'm going to set a border radius, 0 on top, 0 top right, 10 pixels bottom left, and 10 pixels bottom right. Refresh the page. Now it's 40 pixels juu chini. There is a given color radius on the Coldati. So color Coldati, which is here. I'm not going to set this color here, background color. Remove it. Come to the to-do folder, add a background color of white smoke. Refresh the page. Now that's what you can see. There's like a white smoke background here. I need to center everything. So the status folder Coldati can go to the Coldati where they here. Because they are used in a single place, there's no harm by setting the heights here. 100%. Display to flex. Justify content to center. And align items. Align items to the center. That way. Refresh the page. Nothing is working because the columns are not taking the given height. So sometimes when things fall out, you need to inspect and know what's happening. So right click on the element you want to inspect, click inspect, it will open that way. This small screen, move to not responsive screen, actually even close it that way, expand it, take your icon or your arrow icon from there, come here and understand why this one is not working. So go to the status folder. We have the row here. We have the call here. So we have set the height of 100% onto the call, but the row itself has no height of 100%. So let's try to do that if it will solve our problem. Height 100%. Yes. So if you set height of 100% to the row, it has solved or centered everything to the center where it's supposed to be. So let's go ahead and set that. Go to your HTML file. So go to the .status folder. Then there's a row in there, do height of 100%. Save. Close these are called developer tools. You need to use these when things are not working with your CSS. If I refresh the page now, by default everything is centered well, all complete and incomplete. Then we need to style this when it's active and when it's not active, so that we can be able to give them more power. So I'm setting the call. I'm going to style the call dirty when it's active, when it has a class of active on it. So I'm going to set the background to something like gray maybe, or rather to be more good. So I'm just setting the background to this background we have been using here, like that. It will be it will be our background. So take this class and put it in one of these call dirty elements. So I'm setting up the first one active there. Refresh the page. Now it has that background of, or our primary background that we are using. I'm going to add some padding to this. So come here, find the status folder, do padding, and say 10 px. Save, refresh the page. Now somehow everything is pinched together. Increase its height to something 50 pixels in order to take care of the padding added. And also maybe reduce the padding to 5 pixels so that it can be able to take add up to 10 when you go up and the bottom. And also when it's active, I'm going to change the border radius to 10 px, something of sort. Refresh the page. That's what it will look like. Now I'm going to set the same to the dot call dirty when somebody is hovering over them. Refresh, save the page, refresh. Now when I'm hovering, that's how it will look like. The next one I'm going to do is change the cursor. Currently, if you look at the cursor, cursor normal, either it's a text or this arrow cursor, something like that. So I'm just going to force the cursor to be a pointer. It's like that cursor of selecting. So if I save and refresh the page, that will be my cursor. Click on this. Now we will use JavaScript to make sure when one clicks on complete, the active class changes from all to complete, or to incomplete, or to all if one clicks on those. So going down also, we are going to style our list here and how they will be looking like. So we are almost there. I click open here. We have the OL here that is having all these lists. So we have to-dos and the OL in it. Somehow this is a lot of hectic work, having to like repeat ourselves on what we are going to do. So I'm just going to move this into the OL itself, like this. Delete the div because it's not helping us in this case. I don't want to add it. They have it hold information that's not necessary to it. So just simple like that. To do's, then we have the li for this, each of these to do item. So this can be a class of to do item. So you just add the class to all the items given here. Copy, move down here, paste, paste, and paste. Save the file. Go to our CSS and start styling the to-dos. So dot to-dos. I'm going to say list style type to none. I don't want those numbers. And I'm also going to get rid of any given padding. And then instead of getting rid of it fully, I'm going to set it like 10 pixels to a fixed number that I can be able to control. There we go. Now that's where our to-dos are. Now I'm going to style our to-dos item dot to-dos, do item I mean, each of them. So item, I'm going to set some few more classes here, like padding to something like 5 pixels to 0. Refresh, now we have given number, and we are going to add a few things here, or a few classes here to make this one we can be able to scroll in it on its own. So to be able to do that, let me first add a lot of this in order to see what I'm talking about. Copy that, paste, 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 save. If I save and refresh, you can see our to-dos are overflowing and going out of what we even can control. So we only want these to-dos to be able, one can be able to scroll just whenever they are listed, just hapa katikati tu. So how do we achieve that? We are going to achieve that by looking at how our code flows. So we have the status holder, and it's in the to-dos body. So a to-dos body has a given height. So go to our file, where's our to-dos body? It has a given height, so it has a fixed height, we can say. And we have the status holder. It also has a given or a fixed height. Here we go. But for the to-dos, they don't have a height. So we can also be able to set a height to them and have it fixed. So going to our to-dos list, I can be able to set the height here to, I calculate, now it's dynamic 100% minus the status holder's height, that's fixed 50 pixels. Paste there, save, refresh the page. Yes, it has set the height, but it's not working still. Let's see what we can do again to make it work. I set a background here of red, save, refresh the page. Yeah, our height is from here up to here, but why is it overflowing? So this is where we go next and I set a few attributes. For example, it's called the overflow to auto. So save and refresh. So overflow auto will help these to-dos, like all of this element, to be able to have its own overflow and make it scrollable. So it's making the work scrollable. Otherwise, we could use overflow hidden and refresh the page. It won't, the content of this page won't overflow, but we also can't scroll in this element. So to avoid having these problems of being unable to scroll within the element, we just need to set this one to either auto or scroll. So scroll by default, even if the elements are not enough, it will always show the scroll bar. So let me just delete some of these elements to be able to illustrate what I'm talking about. I'll delete almost all of them up to there, save, refresh. So the scroll bar is still visible and it's actually showing both left and right. We only want to show this when there's an overflow. So how we do that is we use auto. I save, I refresh the page, there's no overflow thing. But if I come back and add the content like that, refresh the page, now it has the overflow, the given overflow, like that's just on auto. The overflow appears when there's content too that is overflowing. Let's also set a few things here. I'm going to set overflow X and overflow Y. So I'll use this one, overflow Y alone. The overflow X, in case there's ever an overflow to the X side or the horizontal way, we don't want that one. We just want it to be hidden so that we can only be able to see the overflow. I'm going to get rid of this background even here, like that. Save and refresh the page. That's how our code is look like. The next part is these other list items here. We want them to be also active whenever it's the active item. So how do we achieve that? I'm going to find the to-do or the list item, set a few properties there. So I'm going to start by padding, not padding, but rather border radius. Radius, I'm going to set it to a small number, 10 pixels. And I'm going to add another class here, dot list item dot active. when it's active, and also dot list item when somebody is hovering over it, to have a few, or to have this background given here. So copy the background, save, paste there, save, refresh the page. If I'm hovering over this, it will have that sort of background on each of the items. Then the call for class, the call for here, I'm going to add some padding, just 0 top bottom, but 20 pixels left and right. Right, so that's how it will just moved a bit into the code. I'll just set it to have a padding on a single side. I want it to be on the right of 20 px, like that, just on the right. Yeah, isiguse hii part ingine sana. Then I'm going to change the cursor and add some more padding to it. So the padding we did to each item is 6 pixels. I'm going to change it to 10, actually all around. Refresh the page, that's what it will look like. I'm going to change the cursor to something else, cursor to pointer, like that. Refresh the page, that's what they look like. The next part is to add some active class on it. Come here to the lists that we have and add an active class here. Refresh the page. Now YouTube is active, but if I don't want to activate YouTube, I just want to activate my day's tasks, that's how I activate it. I don't want to activate all, I just want the complete or the incomplete ones. So, and I'm going to switch these classes a bit. This incomplete ikae ya kwanza followed by complete. I come here, just add active here, delete the active from there, refresh the page. That's what we have so far. And let's add one. I'll leave this one for now just like that. We shall add the rest of the functionalities later on, because I can see our time is not on our side. I'm just going to style this input to have it look nicer, isionekane hivi vile inaonekana. So I'm going to my input. So my form here, it is under the to do input. I don't have to add a class to the form, because I can select it on its own. Scroll down, so do to do input form. I'm going to say a display of flex, and flex of 1, and I'm going to do input. I think to do input and the form and the input itself. I want it to have a given width or a given flex, so I'm just going to set this one of flex of 2, and I'm going to copy the same for the button. I'm setting some widths to both of these. So button, I don't have to set to 2, I only want this one to be smaller. So refresh the page, that's what it will look like. This one has taken like 80%, this one 20% of the given width. Then I need to continue styling this, the input itself. So I'm going to set the padding to 10 px. Save, refresh the page. Now the padding has increased to 10 pixels, but somehow larger than what the space that we have been given here. So let me see, to do input. I have not styled the to do input fully, so let me style it. Dot to do input. I'm going to set a display of flex. Just actually align items at the center. And then for the form, I'm going to add another property here of width. I just want it to take a width of 100%. Refresh the page, now everything is centered at, the way we want. Then what we can continue doing in the input is doing an outline of none. And an outline of none, then the border of none. Border none, yeah, like that. Then the border radius, 10 px. Save and refresh the page. That's how our input will look like. Let's style our button. And actually change some border. I don't want the border of this to be like on the right side to have a border. So I'm just going to set it at the left only. So that is 10px 0 0 10px. That will make sure the border radius is only to the left, like that. I'm going to the button and doing the same. So for the button, I'm going to copy this, I think this, and paste here. But now for the border, I'm going to set it just to the right, not on the left. So 0 10px 10px 0. This is top, top right, no, top left, top right, um, bottom right, and bottom left. Refresh the page. Now the input and the button, like they seem like to be in the same direction. Then what I can do for the button is adding the cursor pointer. And for our input here, I want to add something else. So I said border none. So what I can do is maybe 2px solid transparent. Refresh the page. It might not be visible when you look at it from afar, but I have done this so that I can be able to activate the border whenever I want. So for example, I want to activate the border when the input has been focused in it. So I'm going to set the border color to blue. So refresh the page. When I focus, the color changes to blue. I'm going to this other button here. Whenever one hovers on it, I need to change the color too. So I'm going to come here and say, instead of border none, I'm going to set it to pixel solid transparent. So when I'm hovering over the button or clicking on the button, hover, I'm going to set the border color to blue, like that. I save, refresh the page. When I hover over the button, the border color changes to blue. I focus there, the border color is something else. So in the input, I'm going to add some placeholder text. So I'm going to say placeholder equals to now recording tutorial. You could do anything here, but it should be a placeholder that is descriptive enough for you to understand. For example, enter task here, save and refresh the page. That's what it will look like. Enter task here. Now, so far so good, everything is looking great. One more thing, if you could notice from afar, is the font size or the font family is not really nice. So let's do something with the font family that we have. So go to Google Fonts. So fonts.google.com. After it has opened, just search for Google Fonts. Then come here and find a font that looks like you are going to use, that's going to be good for you. So scrolling down, I'm going to go with this one. For example, I'm going to go with Nunito. I'm going to clear my entry here, go down and select the 300, 400, and 500 medium. I think I'll only go to up to 600. I'm going to import this to my CSS file. So copy that, go to your CSS file. On the top, as the first thing you want to do, there, paste there, save the file, come here and copy this. I've saved the file, but if I refresh the page, still you might not notice the difference, or there's no difference, because you have to include that font family here of Nunito so that it can work. So if I refresh the page, it has changed to Nunito and it's looking much better than what I had. So I think that's all for today, and that's how you could do your simple to-do list. I'm going to reduce the paddings here a bit. They look very large. Wrapper card 50 pixels to, let's see what that pixels has. Yeah, that pixels is better. Then I'm going to say the height on the top to reduce it to 50 pixels. Save. used set the overall height of the given of this card instead of 60 pixels or 6, I think it was here, the wrapper, the card white, so I'm going to give it a height of a fixed height, so height of like 100%, so I'm going to calculate 100% minus 100 pixels. I'm just going to do padding on the top and bottom only, and of that. You couldn't notice because it's not flowing through, so I need to do that on the wrapper itself. The wrapper should have the height of the parent, and refresh. Nothing changes. So I'll get back to the such small changes that are not working out. But to quickly fix such, you need to find where your classes flowed to and from. Otherwise, um, things might be difficult really to work out. So, anybody with a question? Yes. Yeah, you could. Yes, you could use any class names. It has not to be wrapper or card or row or call for. So it has to be something that is easier for you to use and maybe even reuse in the next section. So these are just my classes. I have chose to use wrapper for my entire body thing, card for my card, row for my display flex or an element that has some display flex. Otherwise, you could use anything that you feel like, okay, this is my class. I might even decide to call this one main. But when I go to my selector, I have to use main here whenever I have used the wrapper. Let me quickly switch that one. So you can use anything here. It doesn't have to be main or wrapper or something, but somehow use classes that describe what you are doing. That one will be easier for you. If you come tomorrow to complete your code, you can be able to say, oh, I used the wrapper to wrap everything. I used the card for this card. I used this for button. I used the btn for button. I used this for. That way it will be easier for you to recall tomorrow what you were doing yesterday. Yes. Another question? Yes, I did a list of what we are going to achieve today. So lists, how we are going to do lists, for example, YouTube, some other list, and the functionalities that we are going to achieve. For example, adding new lists, adding to-dos to the lists, marking to-do as complete. We have not done much of this, but we have just given an outline of what we ever wanted to achieve. That is, we can have lists, this list here. We can have the title of a selected list. For example, here it should be selected YouTube because it's the one which is active. And these tabs shall have different uh, use cases. For example, just make sure you have, yes, you have something you are going to achieve, write it down, know what you are going to do so that it can be easier for you to even follow through. Yes, so what I'll do, I'll share the video and also share this code. But for now, just finish on the sign up page before you come doing this one because somehow this one has more features or the CSS is more complex than the sign up page that we did before. Since the sign up page didn't have all this stuff, I even can't recall where it was exactly. I think it was here. Yeah, the sign up page didn't have as much of those things that you have seen there. Just go through it, redo it, and see if you can be able. Just duplicate the code as it looks. Do it, see if it's working for you. If it's failing, then yes, then you can be able to move on to the next, to move on to this my best to do app. Yes. Another question from those who are here. Robin, anything to add on? Right. Sounds like Robin actually has been muting through. I don't know why. Maybe the network, maybe microphone imekufa or something else. So I think we are going to end it here. Actually, you have extended by 10 minutes to round off. Let's go to Jeremy. Jeremy, I don't know whether you have been following through, but this is what we have so far. Do you have something to say? Or I share the video, maybe you can have your questions tomorrow because you have not been like about that minute of the class to 45 minutes of it because of network issues. Okay. Yes, so I think I don't have much to say. So let's end it here. So for the questions, kindly, John, if you have any questions, drop them in the group or drop them in my inbox directly. So yes, that is it for today, guys. Thank you for joining the class. Good. Yes. Oh, pole. Sasa, I don't know malulifika, but tulifika hapa. Yes, I do have the video. So I'll share the video and yes, I shall share the video. Utafollow through ukiwa na any other questions. Just maybe ask them in the group or drop them directly to me. Sini sawa. I believe your network is really misbehaving, so that will be for today.